Welcome to the Love Your Inner Athlete podcast, your go-to source for all things mental fitness and sports. Whether you're an athlete, coach, parent, or professional, you will learn as you join us to dive into inspiring conversations with those who have worked to develop their mental fitness. You will hear from people who've put in the work as either an athlete, coach, parent, or professional. In each episode, we bring you discussions and expert insights on developing resilience, focus, and mindset. Discover the concepts of mental fitness and learn how to use it to create consistent, durable confidence in both sports and life. I'm your host, Hans Schulstead. Let's get started.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to the Inner Athlete podcast. I'm Hans Schulstead. We talk all things mental fitness on the Inner Athlete podcast. Our guests are people who have done the work, people who have worked with us and have experience, real life experience in coaching athletes. And our guest today is Greg Miller. Greg coached high school and college basketball. He coached at Armstrong for I don't even know how many years, and then went on to do some coaching at Hamlin. Worked with Greg's team several times, and so happy to have him on. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks. Yeah, I taught at Armstrong for 17 years. And before that, I was a head coach at Richfield for 6, and I was an assistant for 10 years at Lakeville before that. So I've been at my coaching career, 3 high schools, and then Hamlin.
Okay. Well, yeah, so you've seen a lot and been through a lot and seen and been had a front row view or a front row seat of all the different changes in athletics over the last 30, 40 years. So
Yeah.
it'd be great to hear your perspectives. So first question, you coach both high school and college. When you look back, what stands out the most from those experiences, and what's the biggest thing you learned about coaching people?
Well, I guess I was really, I'm really grateful that I even got the chance to be a head coach. I was an assistant for 10 years, and I had some rejection trying to get jobs, and didn't really think I'd ever get a head job, which would have been fine. I mean, being an assistant is awesome. But once I got a head job, I mean, the responsibility, my dad was a head coach and he was an assistant most of his life. And he said, be careful what you wish for. And there's some truth in that because it's an overwhelming job being a head coach. It's awesome. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there's a lot of responsibility and it consumes a lot of your time. You think about it all the time. And as far as being grateful, I'm grateful for so much support. So many great people I met. I can't go anywhere. My wife will say, there's people who know you. It doesn't matter. We're in Florida, Arizona, anywhere. And then people come up, and because I met so many people on the journey, and then the players I was able to coach, I'll never forget them. I'm still in contact with a lot of them, mostly through Facebook and stuff like that. But so yeah, I was just really lucky to meet a lot of really cool people.
Okay. And you often have said that like getting players to work together for the greater good and then also helping them have personal success can be kind of challenging as a coach. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't always navigate it well. It was not easy. Interesting, different kinds of programs too, and expectations have a lot to do with it. When I was in Richfield, we were always the underdog and stuff. And I felt like it was easier almost for those guys to get them to just really buy in. It's like us against the world. And then when I went to Armstrong, I had a lot of elite athletes and really, really good players. We had some good players at Richfield too, but like more of them at Armstrong. And when players are really good, they put a lot of time into it. Their egos are a little bit bigger usually. And so trying to get them to buy in, was not easy all the time, but sometimes it was. Like we had a magical season in 2007. We went to the state championship game. We ended up losing by 2 points in the finals. And that game actually was ranked in the top 5 games in the history of the high school state tournament. It was an awesome game, even though we lost, and a great season. And those guys had synergy. Part of it was because their youth coach, Bob Cates, was awesome. and he taught them to play as a team. And so at Armstrong, sometimes we'd get a core group of kids that learned to play as a team based on who their coach was. So that helped me a lot. But we had non-negotiables, and we would butt heads if we had to, as a coach. Like if you were going to play selfishly or not get back on defense, not, take charges, different things like that, that wasn't acceptable. And my coaching staff, who Brent Olson and Jack Negan, were with me for all 17 years. And we were all on the same page that way. And the expectations just kind of year to year, were passed down. But we had some challenging seasons too, where kids didn't really listen, didn't respond that well. Sometimes I had to rethink my strategies of what I was going to do to get the next team to not be like that team before, mentally. But overall, I think just we were consistent. We had high standards, and we stuck up for what we thought were the non-negotiables.
Okay. Well, you coached a lot of high-level D1 basketball players and great players. What do you think mentally set them apart from the rest of the pack?
Well, that's an interesting question. I started thinking about that a lot. I didn't have that many. Like we had 4.5, like 4 guys who played all the way through Division I, and a 5th guy who ended up starting Division I basketball and played Division I football. At Richfield we didn't have any, so that's good having 5 of them. But it's a small sample size, and each one of those individuals were different. I would say some of my most mentally tough guys actually were like the D3 guys I had, to be honest. I'm not saying the D1 guys weren't. I think they had a passion and a drive to be good, but they also had physical gifts that made them D1 and made them better than everyone else. What I will say is I think maybe some of their college coaches did a better job than I did getting them to focus. And partly it's out of necessity, right? When you go to college, you have to, just even to sniff the court, you got to be locked in. And sometimes in high school, you're the best player. You're locked in some of the time, you're not other times. But I don't want to call those guys out and say they weren't mentally strong. But I had some players who were not at that level, D3 guys, like I said, who were just locked in mentally. And those are some of our best teams too, with guys like that. But
would you say that, how do you see the mental part of the game becoming a separator? And do you ever feel like not mastering it holds players back?
For sure. And I did see some of that. I think being able to forget what happened and move forward is the biggest thing by far in basketball, because it's a game of mistakes. It's a game of turnovers. It's a game of your shot doesn't go in. You can go into a shooting slump like Anthony Edwards. I think he was 3 for 30 of his last 3-pointers until this last game. And the guys who could overcome that were the successful players for sure. And some of those guys were D1, some of them weren't.
Okay. Well, I don't remember if it was 2, 3, or 4 seasons that I worked with your teams. But what do you remember from the stuff that I did with your teams that really stood out or you felt like was really effective?
It's hard to measure what was effective or not for sure, other than I did surveys at the end of the season and I asked them about it, and we got really positive feedback on the things we did. And visualization was one big thing that you taught our guys. And we had done some of that before, like visualizing shooting free throws and stuff. I remember you made a tape for us, and I actually used that tape before every game, especially, I think every game for a couple seasons. And it really helped me relax personally. And, how much the players used it, I probably should have been more intentional checking in if they did or not. But I like that where you visualize like, okay, we're going to be in this situation and things aren't going to go our way. And how are you going to respond? And you would kind of tell us how we were going to respond in a positive way and flush that last play and all that kind of stuff. And I also remember the mouse traps. I think it's called bilateral stimulus. Okay. And so the science behind that, I guess, is trying to get part of your, more than me, obviously, trying to get the brain out of the primordial brain when that takes over your body. which can really happen in basketball. If you just play on pure emotion in basketball, you won't be able to be at your best because you'll be fouling people, you'll be yelling at the referees, you'll be too emotional. So we had people on the bench try to do a mousetrap without looking at it and set it. And I remember Jubialade, one of my best players, who ended up he had challenges psychologically in high school, I think, really learning how to focus, and he really appreciated it. He ended up becoming the MIC Player of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah, his junior year. And for us, he was a solid all-conference player, but he really went to a new level, ended up playing a little bit of pro basketball in Ireland too. And I know he was really into the mousetrap thing. I had other players, we had mousetraps, like 5 of them on the bench for the 5 people who would probably play in the game who were on the bench. I remember that. Also, I know some players would just like snap their fingers when there are breaks in the action, trying to get themselves back to where they wanted to be. So those are the things I remember. Also, your lectures just on what the OPZ was, optimal performance zone. I still remember it's been like 12 years, I think. And not too high, not too low, just kind of getting that zone flow state. And so I know the players, they paid attention in your meetings, and at the end of the year, the surveys, they said that they thought it helped them. But again, it's hard to measure that, right? Did it help? Did they perform better than they did before? I can't really say.
So tell me, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and how do you use it in your life? And who was it from?
Oh, I mean, one of them, I don't know, it just came to me right away, was my mentor, Harry McClenahan, said, worst things first. And I think it's really true in coaching because, especially when you're a head coach, there's so many things that are happening all the time. Playing time, parent might not be happy, you have to do whatever. Uncomfortable conversations that you have to have. And if you let them fester, then it affects your mood and even your life at home and stuff. So I try to hit those things head on, do the tough stuff, but do the worst ones first. And then everything on my list of things to do that day, I still do that to this day. The thing I don't want to do, I don't procrastinate with it. I get that one done. And Harry McClenahan, he taught me that. And I thought that was very beneficial to me during my career too.
Okay. What would you say, who would you say the best coaches are that you've ever had, and what did you learn from them?
I was really lucky. I had a coach in high school who was in the Minnesota Hall of Fame, Hip Hill. And he was really a tough guy, but he wasn't mean. He just challenged us physically and mentally to do the right thing all the time on the court. And so he was a great influence on me. And then Harry McClenahan, he was a principal at Lakeville and got me my first job. He was a guy who he thought outside the box all the time. And he would do fun things. Like we went to Montana for 7 straight years with our teams. And it was, something they'll never forget. I actually took one of my teams to Montana as well when I became a head coach. It's a big undertaking.
Yeah,
2 vans,
sure.
People driving. Yeah. And so he taught me like these, having fun and making an experience. Yeah. In scrimmage trips we'd go on. I ended up taking that too as a head coach, and taking guys on weekend trips, which, you're taking 18 teenagers on a trip. That's a little scary sometimes. But we trusted them, and we had a lot of fun doing that. My dad was a great coach. He was a football coach. He passed away when I was pretty young. I think my first year head coaching, he got to watch my team. And so many stories from other players who played for my dad at Robbinsdale in football. Even to this day, if I go to different things and I see them, they just love my dad. And that's because he was a people person. He told stories. So I learned different things from different people. John Oxton, he's the head coach at Lakeville. So the reason I got a head job at Richfield, I think, is because we went to state tournament. Lakeville goes all the time now. But back then, 1995 was the first time they ever made it to state. I was the assistant. And John and I became close friends. In fact, we're going to go to Florida here in a month together. of our families. And he taught me organization and just to really be on top of everything, because I wasn't the most organized person is my personality. And I really learned to improve on that as I got, because of Coach Oxton, and also as I just developed through time at being really organized. So I've had been around a lot of great coaches, and I got really lucky that way.
Okay. Well, so you referenced coaching back in the 90s. How have you seen the approach or the view on mental training and mental health change throughout your career?
I think it's changed a lot. Let's take mental health first. I mean, I think there was a really big stigma about mental health in the 90s, and it just kept, I think, getting better and better and better through time, and more accepted that, people go to therapy. I went to some therapy when I was a head coach, and that really helped me. And I talked to my team openly about that, and that, reach out. It's good for you. And I think that as far as sports psychology, another huge leap. I mean, every single athlete now, I think in the NBA has their own sports psychologist, and then they have a team sports psychologist, and there's all this mental training that they're doing to try to get people to even be able to make quick decisions. And there's new technology and things. So I know when I would tell my players, when you came, I'd say, LeBron James does this before every game. McDermott, who was a friend of mine at Creighton, coach his son, who was player of the year in the NCAA. He did it before every game. He met with a sports psychologist, and that was a big thing. I remember when they were in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's just, in sports for sure, it's just really common now. And I think some of the stigma definitely has gone away just in mental health in general, seeking help, professional help.
Okay. Well, and as a follow-up question, what would you say to people who kind of have the thought process that, well, if I just ignore this stuff or this part of the game, it'll just go away, or it'll open a can of worms that I can't fix or control?
I think the opposite is the case. I think if you keep it buried inside, then I think it comes out sideways, and it comes out in emotional outbursts. It can come out. And I think one of the biggest ways, if you don't seek mental health help, if you're letting this affect you on the court, is you end up feeling like almost shame that you are performing poorly. You look at yourself as a failure as a person when things don't go right. And I think that's one of the big things sports psychologists can help you with. I mean, that's one of the things, I'll just be honest, you were my sports psychologist in an individual meeting, and it really helped me. Your question was, is your family going to love you after this game if they lose? If you lose, yes. So what are you afraid of? And that really helped me. That resonated with me. Like, I'm still, the people who are really important to me are going to still be, love me and be important to me no matter what happens on the court. And I think if players don't get help when they are really struggling mentally, I'm talking about performance wise now, that they can sometimes, again, see themselves as a failure instead of having a growth mindset where they can just keep getting better,
Well, and later on in your career, you were coaching at Hamlin. What did you see from the college athletes that you in those areas?
Interesting. There, we didn't have a sports psychologist at Hamlin. They couldn't afford it probably. Their budgets are really tight there. But there were players who needed it for sure. As far as the difference in coaching, it's a way more relaxed environment in college, believe it or not, in Division III than it was in high school. And the players are just all really good. They all are there. They're not getting even on scholarship, right? But they're really good. Like, it's hard to make it in Division III basketball. My college guys don't understand like how good you have to be. I mean, my high school players, I don't think they really had a clue until they got into college, some of them. And so I really like the camaraderie. I like how they're more mature. It was, there wasn't in high school, sometimes it seems almost like life or death to some of those guys, and it's
Yeah.
very emotional. And there's a lot of times, what do I want to say, like gossipy things or jealousies and that kind of thing that you're dealing with a teenage brain, and not all the time, but sometimes it's just more drama. There's not as much drama and there's not as much parent involvement either with playing time and all that kind of stuff in college. And the kids are just on their own. And so I like that. But I saw some kids suffering from depression for sure in college, because that's a time of your life too, where there's a lot of stressors and you don't know what you want to do with your life, and your whole future's ahead of you. But like, what are you going to do? So I know we had students seeing this, not sports psychologists, but they had mental health that they could get through insurance at Hamlin. And I know some players confided in me that they did that and stuff. And so I could see the need for it for sure.
Okay. Well, and so kind of switching gears, as a high school coach, I would imagine the role of parental involvement or parents and like the professionalization of, youth sports, like that wasn't a thing in the 90s. And I'm sure you watched that like grow, if you will, and become more prevalent. What advice would you give to young coaches about handling parents or handling those difficult situations with parents?
Well, I think it's probably as far as how to do it, the same as it always was, and that is, I think, being really upfront and honest. And really, I mean, I had this happen with me. Like, my daughter was a volleyball player, and so many times I wanted to call the coach. I didn't do it. My wife's like, "You can't do it. Like, you preach, you're not doing it." And I didn't do it. But the reason was he never communicated. My daughter would be playing one game, starting, then not one word was said to her. The next game, she's not even playing. And I was like, "What is going on here?" I'd ask her. She'd say, "I don't know. He doesn't tell me." I'm like, "Well, maybe you need to go talk to him, but if I would have ever done it, she would not have been happy. But it also gave me some perspective as a parent. Like, when you're watching, you're just watching your kid. I mean, you want to watch the whole team and you want them to win. You think that's what, as a coach, that's what all the fans and all the family members want. It's not what they want necessarily. That's a nice side thing, I think, is personally what I think. But they want their son or daughter to be successful, right? And so I think just really being open and honest with their roles, talking to them so clearly that they can go home and tell their parents, "Here's what the coach said about why I'm playing, why I'm not playing." And then we have a big parent meeting every year. We did, and I was really upfront and honest about that. I said I wouldn't take conversations about playing time, but when I got older, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing they want to talk about if it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And I never know if I was handled this right or not, but I had a few parents. They didn't really have many parent issues at Armstrong, to be honest, but occasionally the playing time thing, and they call me or text me, whatever, and they'd say, "Don't tell my son," and I would tell them, and I'd say, "Hey, your dad called me." And they'd be like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I just want to know what's the problem. I mean, let me know. Am I doing something that you think is not fair? And so they weren't usually happy that their parent had called. And, I did say at the beginning, like, if you're so after those experiences, I said, don't call me and tell me not to tell your kid you called, because I'm going to tell him you called unless it's a mental health thing. Then I, like, if it was something like you're calling me and you're saying, "Hey, Joe's really struggling with that," then I'm not going to say, "Oh, your dad called," or anything.
Right.
But I usually work pretty good. So I just think open, honest communication, young coaches, that's the biggest thing. And then be willing to have the parent meeting. I mean, that's what makes coaching draining sometimes. You got to sit down with the parent and the kid in a room sometimes, and you got to just say, "Okay, here's why the playing time is the way it is. Here's why the role is the way it is. I understand you're not happy with it, but I think if you're willing to do those meetings, that helps a lot. And we also had a meeting with every single player, beginning of the season, middle of the season, end of the season. And we would just explain what their role was, as well as we could, and say, okay, here's what it is. And sometimes I'd even say, you should tell your parents this is the role that you have.
How did you get players to embrace their roles, even if they weren't happy with them?
It didn't seem like we had that many problems with that. I think it kind of comes organically. Like if you have I think we had a good program with good players, and they just kind of knew, and we gave them freedom too to make decisions, right? Sometimes you get infighting with the players, more like you're taking too many shots or that kind of thing, or this guy won't pass to this guy. But that was the exception rather than the rule. So I think a lot of times, good players, they know how to play and they know what shots they should be taking. One time I had a parent come up to me and his kid was playing awesome. He's a sophomore. He's sixth man. He's probably the best sixth man. He's averaging like 11 points a game, probably in our conference. And we were really close to going to the state tournament that year. And we probably would have maybe went the next year, but the kid transferred. Dad, he comes up to me at this youth tournament and he says, "Why don't you let my son shoot from the outside?" I'm like, because he knows he can't make them from the outside. And so he doesn't shoot them from the outside. He goes inside. If he could make them from the outside, he's got freedom to shoot them whenever he wants. He's making that decision on his own. He knows that that's not his strength. But it wasn't a good answer for the dad. And then he went to a different school. He ended up being really good. Just never took an outside shot. He never shot from the outside. He went inside all the time because that's what he was good at, even all the way through his senior year. So I think kids know a lot of times too. But it's more like course correction when they're doing this, things that are hurting the team, and but it didn't seem like we had that happen very often. They just kind of knew. They knew if they were doing it wrong, then we would let them know, I guess. But yeah.
How would you say you changed as a coach over time?
Well, coaching 23 years as a head coach is a long time nowadays. Like you don't see it happen that much anymore. And put a lot into it. When I first started, it was like, oh man, this is the most important thing in the world. Like there's nothing more important than me being the head coach, And then as I got older, I think things got more in perspective. I had a family. I saw things a little bit differently that way. We gave kids Saturdays off all the time. We never practiced on a Saturday. Let them have their weekend. Let them, we had other functions on Saturdays every once in a while, like running tournaments and stuff. But and the other thing is you kind of get tired of your own voice as a coach in the same program for a long period of time, like the 17-year run. And so we tried to do new things a lot and challenge ourselves as coaches to, like hire a sports psychologist, hire a personal trainer that was like outside the box. And we wore heart bands and we measured before anyone was doing that stuff. Now they're all doing it in college. And that's because we got lucky and got exposed to this guy who was into that stuff, and we raised the money and he gave us a good deal. But we did that for 5 years. They even wore him in the games. And so I think, experience, I guess I wasn't really ready for that question so much. So I'm just thinking about it right now. I think trying to improve all the time. Like not just resting on, okay, this is the best way to do it, and we're just going to do this. I think that keeps you fresh as a coach and as a teacher too. If you're going to do this for a long time, trying new things was probably the thing that I prided myself in, and probably helped me have the longevity that I did in coaching, that I didn't burn out.
Do you feel like being a teacher in the building helped you to be a better coach?
I think so. Definitely. You're part of the fabric. You see them many times a day. A teacher can, who's having trouble with the behavior of a student, can have you, right away, and they know you're there, and you can have meetings. And I was so lucky to be able to be in the building at both places I was at. And that was, I think it really helps you.
What's a story or memory from your coaching career that still makes you smile?
Um, well, there's so many. I mean, one thing that makes me smile and emotional is we were at Armstrong and they knew I was going to retire. And all of a sudden I see some guys from Richfield up in the stands. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? I see a couple guys up there. And then I see a couple more guys. Then I see a couple more guys. Pretty soon there's 15 guys up there from my old school I hadn't even taught at for 20 years. And so anyway, so that was a really great memory. I couldn't believe that those guys, even though I had not been with them for a long time, that we made that big of an impact on their lives, that they wanted to come there. And then we got to go out after the game and have dinner and stuff. And so that was a really cool memory that makes me smile, that those Richfield kids, they weren't kids anymore. They're men in their 30s, decided to do that for me. So that was really awesome.
Well, and I think that points to like a couple of things that I really always appreciated about you, your authenticity and your emotions. But the other thing is I always knew that relationships were important to you and the relationships with your players were important.
For sure. We had a couple things happen in the last year. They brought back the Hall of Fame in Armstrong, and 3 of my players made the Hall of Fame in the last 2 years. And one of them was Everett Pettisqua, and he was 6'6", 250 probably in high school. Ended up getting to be over 300 pounds and made the NFL for 3 years for the Denver Broncos. He was in the practice squad, but he still made it. He's living in Houston, and he made the Hall of Fame. So I knew he wouldn't have money to get up there. So whatever, we got him up here. And then we got to get together with those guys. That was our 2004 team, and they made the state tournament. And a bunch of those guys came over, and it was awesome just to see them. I hadn't seen them, and they're all, are doing well in life now. And just to see them with their buddy, like things that never changed. It was just like it was 20 years ago, and it was like it was yesterday. So, relationships. I'm a bit lucky to. I think social media is good too, because, I get a busy life with my kids and grandkids and my job and all that, but at least you can connect with people through that kind of stuff. Definitely. It's one of the best parts of the job for sure.
Yeah. Well, and didn't you just get put into the Armstrong Hall of Fame yourself?
I did. Yeah. And that kind of surprised me. That was nice. And that was, I invited a couple players from my first team to come, and they agreed to do it from 2001, and and that was pretty neat. One of them's name was Tommy Franklin, and he's a guy who just had just a really good guy, but he had some ups and downs in his life, and stayed in contact with him, and he's doing great now. And so it was really cool that he was there. And then Lauren Marcus, he ended up being a coach at Armstrong for quite a while, and several of my players have been coaching either in the Armstrong program or other places. That makes me proud too, that they want to stick with hoops. But I did. I made the Hall of Fame, so that was great. It was really good for my family to see all the sweat and tears that we put in for all that time was recognized. So
yeah. Well, so you referenced your kids and your grandkids. So tell me what you're doing with your time now in retirement.
Well, 2 days a week, I help watch I have a grandson who's 4, and he's really athletic. Yes, he is. Seriously, like his hand-eye coordination, he can hit a golf ball 60 yards. It's
wow.
Yeah, and he can he's just like automatic shooting buckets. And then he's got 2 little brothers who are twins, who are 2, and super cute and super fun. And my wife and I have been married for 35 years, Diane, and she's going to retire here, so we're going to do a little bit of traveling together, and then just adjusting to a new, can do whatever I want every day, pretty much. And it's a different total 180. I will say this, when I did decide to retire from coaching, it was strange that I didn't really miss it that much, because when you're doing it, like I said before, it feels like it is the most important thing. And now when I go to a high school game and watch, it doesn't seem that important anymore.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, it's so much. And I just enjoy being a fan now. I'm a really big Timberwolves fan. I watch almost every game. I love Chris Finch as a coach. And from a sports psychology position, he is one worth watching all of his press conferences because he's brutally honest after every game. And you can just see how he talks to the fans about the guys like Anthony Edwards and all that. How he's trying to motivate them. It's interesting. So anyway, I'm watching a lot of sports on TV at the end of the night when my wife goes to bed too.
Oh, well, that's great. I'm glad that you've had those great experiences, and your players always respected you and always said great things about you. And it's a testament to you and your way of doing things that, you had me doing this with your teams when it wasn't necessarily the as prominent as it is now. So I thank you for that. I learned a lot from working with your programs and working with you. It was a lot of fun. So it was great to have you on and to catch up. So thanks for your time today.